Welcome everyone to the first Black Women in Sport Foundation Virtual Next Steps Forum. We're so excited to be on today. You see our wonderful panelists who have joined us. We have a phenomenal program in store for you this evening. We are discussing self-care, resilience, and mental wellness during crisis. If you are joining this dialogue from Zoom, you'll see a poll on your screen right now. And in that poll, you will be able to answer questions about your career path, just to give us a little information about who's on the line with us. My name is Nenna Akatobi, and I currently serve as the Executive Director of the Black Women in Sport Foundation. I've been in this role since early March, and it has been an exciting moment of transition for the organization. Our board has a great vision of connecting with communities we serve in dynamic and intentional ways. And these virtual programs are just one of the many ways you'll see our organization active during this COVID-19 pandemic. For those unfamiliar with the Black Women in Sport Foundation, we are a nonprofit organization. We were founded in 1992, and our mission is to increase the involvement of Black girls in all aspects of sport. Our co-founder, Professor Tina Sloan Green, often says we provide opportunities from the playing field to the boardroom. Our organization has a rich history of youth development, and we enroll girls and boys in programs conducted throughout the city of Philadelphia and surrounding areas. Our specialty, though, is connecting young people in underserved areas with non-traditional sports such as field hockey, lacrosse, and tennis. We also facilitate the involvement of women of color in all aspects of sport through professional development programs. The Black Women in Sport Foundation offers scholarships, internships, and other professional opportunities for women of color to increase the diversity of the professional pipeline in sports and entertainment careers. Our goal will be taking on a lot of different projects in the coming weeks and months, and we hope you'll join us along the journey. So please check out our website, www.blackwomeninsportfoundation.org, for more information about upcoming events and programs. I will be pausing my video during the webinar, but you can find me in the Zoom chat box moderating your questions. And those of us who are joining us on Facebook, you can submit your questions in the comment section of the live stream. I will be back on screen to close out the program and share some resources. And you can use your gallery view in the top right-hand corner to see all of the panelists at the same time. And if you're having any technical issues, I'll do my best to support you. Please send me a direct message in the Zoom chat. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Dr. Sonia Robinson, who will also introduce our incredible panel. Dr. Robinson is a diversity strategist and consultant with 122 Consulting Group and has spent most of her career supporting the development and implementation of innovative, inclusive excellence strategies for complex organizations and institutions in higher ed. Prior to joining 122 Consulting Group, Dr. Robinson served as the Director of Inclusion at the NCAA, and was the primary liaison for over 1,100 colleges and university athletic programs related to issues of race, ethnicity, disability, and she also led development and facilitation for national conferences and workshops. Dr. Robinson is a former Division I student athlete and coach, and holds a doctorate in sports administration with a minor in research methodology and an MBA with a focus area in organizational behavior and entrepreneurship. Goodness gracious, she is an accomplished woman. Dr. Robinson.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you so much. I am so happy to be here with you all tonight. And I can't say enough about the Black Women in Sport Foundation. It's been an honor to be asked by them to moderate this conversation tonight, which is really an extremely important one. And I'm just so happy that you all are here to enjoy this with us. As Nina said, I'm going to introduce our panelists, but before we do that, I just wanted to take this opportunity just to take a moment and just sit here and just think about the moment that we're in globally, and just to, for a moment, recognize that we're all here together and experiencing this together and understanding the individuals that are on the front lines and everything else. But if we could just take a moment to think of those individuals and think of ourselves and our panelists and just be here in that moment. Thank you. Before I get to the panelists, I want to share one quick story. And this happened a few years ago when I had a health incident And I just recall I had a male doctor and he said, "You women don't talk to each other enough." And that just stuck with me, this idea that we're going through things that we don't share with one another and we could be helpful to one another. And that's always stuck with me. And I'm grateful to the Black Women in Sport Foundation, to Nena, the executive director, to Tina Sloan Green, the founder, and to the board members who have all made this possible. But the idea that we can come together and have these conversations and really help and reach out and touch one another. So again, I'm just grateful for this opportunity. One other thing, if you're on the Zoom chat with us, you do have the opportunity to show some reactions in the chat. You can do a hands, I think you do a thumbs up, you can do a clap sign, something to let us know that you're out there and also with us. If you hear something that really resonates, by all means, put capital letters and say yes with an exclamation point, whatever it takes to show that you are also feeling this and that this is resonating with you. All right, so without further ado, let's get started. It is my privilege to be able to introduce to you tonight the individuals that we have to share their expertise and wisdom with you. First, Dr. Akua Boateng. Dr. Boateng, a native of California, is a licensed professional counselor with an emphasis in individual and couples therapy. She has trained at multiple acute and outpatient facilities across the Tennessee Valley, including the North Alabama Regional State Hospital and the Homicide Survivors Recovery Program. After receiving a master's in clinical psychology from Alabama A&M University, to utilize her training to provide cognitive behavioral therapy as one of the primary adult therapists in an outpatient clinic. She also has experience as a psychological examiner conducting intelligence and psychological testing for private practices. With 11 years of experience in clinical practice and education, she specializes in an integrative approach to treating anxiety, depression, mood disorders, work concerns, grief, couple and relationship issues, and several other emotional concerns. Due to her passion for relationships and couple work, she completed a PhD in marriage and family therapy at Eastern University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She presently works in private practice in South Philadelphia. Dr. Boateng's desire is for individuals to overcome their personal obstacles that often create barriers in relationships. She works with clients to take ownership of their emotional health, become aware of unhealthy patterns, and work toward a more authentic existence so that they can partner well. Dr. Boateng has contributed to media outlets such as Refinery 29, and her private practice was featured on AfroPhilly.com's weekly professional spotlight. She adds to the changing narrative surrounding mental health issues and wellness. Dr. Boateng, would you just give a little wave to the people?
Glad to be here.
Right. Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Stephany Coakley. Dr. Stephany Coakley, a certified mental performance consultant and licensed professional counselor with a doctorate in exercise and sports science with a concentration in sports psychology, was named Senior Associate Athletic Director for Mental Health, Wellness, and Performance in December 2017. With the appointment, Dr. Coakley became the first full-time mental health specialist with the Temple University Department of Athletics. The Nassau, Bahamas native has worked as a certified mental performance consultant with Maximum Mental Training Associates in Washington, D.C., where she coordinated mental health and wellness services for college student athletes, as well as Olympians and professionals. In 2007, Coakley began working at the Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, D.C. In her position as a Master Resilience Trainer performance expert, she managed performance enhancement interventions for basic combat training recruits, warriors in transition, Army nurses, and other military personnel. She also provided master resilience training to senior non-commissioned officers to improve their mental strength, readiness, and resilience through the deployment cycle. Her areas of expertise include mental skills training and mastery, personal player development, sports career transitions, injury and rehabilitation, positive youth development through sport, parenting well-rounded athletes, managing anxiety and other emotions, coping with pressure, building confidence, maintaining motivation, attention control, and military performance enhancement. Dr. Coakley, will you tell the people hello?
Good evening, everyone. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
All right. Dr. Margaret Ottley is a professor of sport exercise psychology at Westchester University. She received her PhD and MA degree from Temple University in sport and exercise psychology, a second MS degree in clinical mental health counseling, and a BA degree from Spelman College in child development and family studies. She completed her postdoctoral training at Purdue University, focusing on curriculum and instruction in physical education. She is an Association for Applied Sports Psychology Fellow and Certified Mental Performance Consultant. For over 12 years, Dr. Ottley has competed in field hockey at Caribbean, regional, and international levels for the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and is the founder and chair of Sankofa HP, High Power Performance, LLC, which provides culturally specific developmental mental performance programs to a diverse number of athletes and sports practitioners. As the Caribbean's first sports psychology consultant, Dr. Ottley has designed 2 3-year sport psychology programs for sport administrators and coaches, and for elite athletes leading up to the London Olympics, which is presently the country's most successful Olympic Games. She serves as the mental performance and wellness consultant for the National Scholastics Athletic Foundation's New Balance Indoor and Outdoor National Championships, Caribbean Invitational Scholastic Games, Javelin and Triple Jump projects in the US and Cuba. She is on the board of the Black Women in Sport Foundation and had the honor of working on Dove's My Beauty, My Say campaign as the mental performance consultant. Dr. Ottley, would you say hello to the people? And last but certainly not least, Dr. Vernice Richards is a human performance specialist that has worked with athletes and other performers for the last 13 years. Her expertise includes program and workshop development, which focus on a developmental approach to increased human performance. Having presented research, done workshops, and led seminars worldwide, she enjoys traveling and experiencing new cultures. With the personal model of learning never ceases, she also dedicates herself to learning, teaching, and practicing tools that help performers excel. Dr. V, as she is referred to by clients, emphasizes the developmental character, uses mental health, mental wellness, counseling, and various holistic and technology-assisted techniques to help her guide her clients toward achieving peak performance in their sport, profession, and/or everyday life. Life is a sport. Dr. V believes that the skills and strategies employed in human performance can be transferable to everyday life, challenges, and stressors, making us all performers. Dr. V.
Hi, everybody.
Again, thank you all for being here. We're going to jump into these questions that we have. Again, please be sure to type some questions into the chat and we'll try to get to those as well. Just to begin our conversation this evening, and it's going to be a quick hour, so we're going to try to get through this. We know that we're experiencing uncharted waters, and this territory is very new to us. It seems as if overnight our worlds have changed, our perspectives have changed, and we're just all in this together. I want to find out from all of you, give you all the opportunity to speak, to let us know, what are these feelings that we're having? You know, what is these concerns that we're encountering now? And is it new or is it just enhanced? Dr. Coakley, let's start with you.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. For me, what most of the student athletes I'm working with are currently experiencing, which it's something that we're all experiencing, to be quite honest, and that's high levels of anxiety. So one of the first things I want to point out is that it makes absolute sense for us to be feeling that way because of what you said. Like, we're in uncharted waters. I've never, ever been in a pandemic before. I don't think any one of us on this panel or anyone who's listening on this webinar tonight has ever experienced a pandemic. So it makes absolute sense that we're all experiencing some anxiety. It's about how we are dealing with the anxiety that is varied. So for me, most of my student athletes are experiencing anxiety. My peers are experiencing some anxiety. Family members are experiencing anxiety. None of us is immune to that experience. And I just say we should honor it. Unless we honor it and we name it, we can't really address it adequately or appropriately. So it's about honoring it, giving it a name, understanding why we're feeling this way. For all of us, as I mentioned, we're all experiencing this period differently. So some of us might feel anxious because we're worried about not being able to go to graduation or unable to compete in postseason tournaments, unable to have the wedding that we were planning for the past umpteen years. There are some of us who might be experiencing not only anxiety, but regret about not doing something that we, under the current restrictions that we are living under, we can't do right now for whatever reason. So it's just about identifying what we're feeling honoring it, figuring out why it is that we feel that way. I mean, that self-awareness is so important. And then taking steps to somehow make it make sense, and then make some small victories every day.
Thank you. Dr. V, how would you explain what's going on in the world right now?
Explaining it, that's like a tall order of a question. Because like Dr. Coakley said, none of us really know what we are in for and what's happening. I think for me personally, it's been a very interesting dynamic that we have to mesh with, because usually we are in a position where when we work with athletes or we work with clients, that we are on one side of the table sort of being empathetic and trying to understand, okay, what is this person going through? How do we guide them through this process? And what we find now is that we are also in the same boat, shoveling the same set of water out of the life craft, trying to figure out how do we all get through this. So I think for the carers among us and those that are here, if you're a healthcare worker, knowing that, okay, you are also putting yourself at risk. You are here with your family. You have to deal with the same challenges that a lot of people that come to you have to deal with. And that kind of awareness of, okay, how do I care for myself in this season while I'm also caring for the people that I want to care for, is a very interesting dynamic that we will, I'm sure, address throughout this process. I think in addition to that, as we spoke about, that there is a lot of anxiety. And I usually mesh it with, like, it's akin to a competitive environment. The exception is that it's for an extended period of time, and recognizing how we're managing our strengths, how we are compartmentalizing our abilities to deal with stress, our resilience, if you want to put it that way, and how we're doing with that, how we're dealing with that stress, that worry, that anxiety throughout an extended period of time when we're used to being trained for a 45-minute stint or a 1 or 2 or 3 day tournament or competition. So those are the two areas that for me has made it really, really interesting to sort of look at what we're dealing with. But explaining what it is, it's very interesting, but because it is a journey that we're on together.
Absolutely. Thank you. Dr. Ottley?
Yeah. Can you hear me? So here I am. For me, it's everyone who worked with me would know that I practice positive sports psychology. I'm the most positive person that, ever. I claim it. And this one, for some reason, I feel, that my mental health is challenged, and I have this motto: it's God, family, sport. I am always grateful for every opportunity, every day that I get up, and I find myself a bit angry. And I had to really, kind of claim the feeling of anger, because I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it. But my athletes, they feel that sense of isolation. It's like you're prepared as well to take on a semester or a season, because this is what athletes are trained to do. So you're all prepared, and now you have nowhere to go. You have all your meets are canceled. So how do you move past that? What do you do in this waiting time? So it's a kind of loss. It is a loss. It's a loss of opportunities. It's a loss of finances. So we can go on. I could go on naming a whole chain of losses that this has caused. So for me, is that disconnect, and it's challenging. That sense of self and that strength that I usually would have. So I'll take this opportunity to go back, inside of my sport, stature, and I want to be able to really thank the elders who I see pushing through. Someone just called me up and said, hey, her 98-year-old grandmother just survived. She was in the hospital for 3 days and she was sent home, and she's recovering really well. And that gives me courage. So I want to thank the people who give me courage, you know, and that's people from the Black Women in Sport Foundation. Professor Green is just amazing. And I grew up inside of the foundation. I came in as an immigrant into the country, went to Spelman, and then straight to Temple University where I met her. And she gave me opportunities to meet the board. I had like Alpha Alexander, you know, Nikki Frank, all these amazing women. You know, Sheila Ward was also a grad student with me. And I always remember, you know, some of her values were very similar, but you know, God, she would always say, you know, God don't like ugly. You know, she would teach and she would live the life, you know, as well. Family meant a whole lot, you know, and so I'm so proud to see her daughter Tracy Green doing her own thing at Harvard as a tennis coach, and her son, you know, Frank. So those are the people that I look up to. And when I call, like Professor Green is someone I can call anytime, and when I have some kind of conflict. And I'm saying this deliberately because, you know, for those of you who don't know the Black Woman in Sport Foundation, you may read about it, but I am a living testimony on where my strength came from. You know, someone who would say, hey, listen, you know, I was very soft-spoken, and Professor Green would say, speak up, you know, say what's on your mind. You have a voice. Right, so those are the values that I am now pulling from in order to go through. So it's a very spiritual journey. This is for me. I feel like I have people. I could call her anytime, and other elders that surround me, and they pick up the phone, and you know, and they always have a comforting word. And that's what we need at this time, that my young athletes, my senior athletes, that's what they need right now. And I'm there for them, and it's a family out here. That's what I got.
Thank you. Dr. Akua, I want to turn to you, and I'm going to go with our doctor and first names now since we're family. But Dr. Akua, I'm going to turn to you asking the same question, but I'd also like you to lead us into the next part about those strategies, because I know that all of you as practitioners, you're dealing with individuals and you're helping them with their situations, but you yourselves are living in this space with us too. So if you would, you know, just answer again what you're encountering with your clients, and then what are your strategies for yourself?
Yeah, I found myself, I think the past 2 weeks, keeping this statement and saying this often. It feels like a movie, right? It feels like we've descended into this space of this reality that we've never experienced before. We've never been in this place before. Never has there been a set of generations that has descended upon a time where there has been a collective global uncertainty paired with a collective pause. Everyone in the world is experiencing a similar thing at the same time. And sometimes when you think about that, it can create anxiety for a lot of people. I think a lot of the women talked about that, this idea of uncertainty, whether the virus might touch my own health, right? Would I be able to get the resources that I need? Is my family okay? Is my grandparent, is my parent okay? Will they be okay? And then my finances, thinking about the future, my job, my restaurant, my career. And so many people in this world are experiencing the same thing at the same time. And how we perceive life in general has to change from here. It just will change. And so while that is a level of anxiety and uncertainty for a lot of people, it also can create this idea of solidarity. I am not alone in this situation. There are millions of people that feel this uncertainty, that feel this worry, that worry about their families, that worry about their finances, that worry about their future. And it's really significant and unique because these tenets of safety, our family, our finances, our health, really get to the heart of humanity in general. And so how do we deal with that? First of all, I guess naming it would be important. And that's why I think it's important that I took the time to really name what it is that many of the people that are watching are experiencing. This is what's happening. It's something completely unique. We've never done this before. And to be gracious with yourself is number one. One of the things that I often talk to my clients about. You don't have a playbook for this. There's no manual. We've never been here before, again. And so how do we literally take each moment at the time? It can't even be an hour sometimes, because we look at the media, we look at the news, and things change hour to hour, moment by moment, right? And so how do I descend down into this moment, accept the solidarity that is happening around the world, that we're all concerned, we're all worried about what's happening here, but there is something that I can do, and it's in this present moment, and it's in this season. It may be for you getting back to the basics. How do I create a schedule for myself? I've had to do that for myself, right? To get up in the morning and to be grateful for the things that I have in this present moment, all while holding the duality of the future being really uncertain. Can I do that? Yes, I can. We all have the capacity to do that. We all have the ability to do this. And so this moment gives us the opportunity to create that schedule, create that timeline, create those goals for yourself. Today, I'm just going to minimize my media. Today, I'm going to check the news twice. It could be really simple for you, right? I'm not going to do that all day. Or I'm going to really connect with people that I haven't for a long time. I'm going to feel the anxiety within me, but then I'm going to create an action. I'm going to call someone. I'm going to FaceTime the person that I might be worried about, right? And the most important thing, I think, that some of the women touched on is that there's this great sense of powerlessness that this brings, that some of the things that are going on right now, we really cannot control them. And so it's really hard for us to experience this level of powerlessness, even if it is together, even if it is global. It is one of the most challenging things for a human person to experience and to navigate. However, as we accept that, there are things in my life I do not have the power to change. It allows us to allow that to rush over us, and that feeling will leave, right? It's temporary. But then how do I lean into the things that I do have power on? How do I lean into the things that I can control in this moment? And so the strategies that I found myself attending to really look like naming what it is that I'm going through, recognizing the significance of it. I am not unique in that, right? The world is experiencing it with me. There's a solidarity, there's a commonness to it. And so I'm not alone. What can I do in this moment? Let's get up, let's work, let's create space for ourselves to have gratitude and mission and purpose and utility, all while giving ourselves grace and mercy to have the moments of anxiety that we experience.
Awesome. Dr. Margaret, that reminds me of something you said on our prep call, this idea of simplifying life that, you know, what Dr. Akua was saying. And can you expand a little bit on that as far as your strategies?
Yeah, it's, I was talking about, you know, having that challenge that we would have between being in a mindset of doom, you know, and seeing the situation as something that is, you know, lacking, you know, versus looking at it as an opportunity to build self, an opportunity to for abundance. So it was really about lack versus abundance, and it's really about thought shifting. You know, as we go through this challenge of feeling isolated. I saw in the chat that someone said, you know, a lot of us are isolated from our families. And so my family, everybody's in Trinidad. If something happens right now, I can't go because traveling is not allowed. So we feel this, and that's why, you know, for me, I feel like I want to be real with this, as far as you got to feel something intense inside, even though we can say, hey, listen, you know, things are going to be better. We know that things are going to be better. You know, there's a history of horrible pandemics, you know, that has gone through, and people have survived, even though many has been, you know, have moved on as well. But the world will keep on turning, and world will keep on going, but we still want to be able to cope. We still want to be able to look at this intruder in the face and say, hey, listen, you know, we can actually, as you know, as I heard someone said, you know, it's something that we can do, right? We can do better. We can actually organize our days, that, like what was just said, you know, we can get up in the morning and put a smile on our faces. We can still send a note out to our loved ones, you know, via technology. We can still, you know, there are little things that we can do. So I was more going inside of that place of strength, even though there was, you know, there's so many things that we can look at and say, hey, listen, I'm angry about this. So I claim my anger, but I don't stay in that space. I claim the anger because it is real to me. It is an intruder. If someone was coming into your house and break through the windows, you know, and come in and steal your valuable things, which is for us, it's our life. You know, this bacteria is like the intruder, or the virus is the intruder coming into our houses, which is our bodies, and just doing havoc. So we must fight. We must. But the way to fight, I fight through my spirituality. I fight by, you know, trying to find a safe space and flipping it around and meditating. And whenever I think of isolation, I think of it as an opportunity for me to have some, you know, self-reflection and look at the kind of things that I, and just a quick story, I got up this morning, you know, and I was really stressed out. I had a dream, a really bad dream, you know, and then I realized that it was about someone that I have a good relationship with. But then I had to go back in and realize that we didn't have a good relationship when I was a teenager. So what do I do with all of this? But, you know, my back of my neck was hurting and I was really stressed out in my dream. And then it came to me about gratitude, you know, and forgiveness. Because that relationship I had as a teenager with that person was really something that had to happen for me to be here and to be this strong. So I could go back and say, hey, listen, I can make this phone call and have a good conversation and say, I am grateful to you, instead of saying, I don't like you. Right? So it's about shifting, always shifting to accepting, hey, listen, this is the situation. This is how we think, what is going on. It sucks, as my students would say, this sucks. But then what are we going to do about it? Yeah, I can still call my family and check in on them. We have a family chat. So we say kind words and we say fun and we send funny videos to each other. So it's about moving forward, even inside of the space where we are hyper-vigilant.
Right, thank you. Dr. Stephany, I also want to know your strategies, and perhaps I see some comments in the chat as well. Perhaps you could also help us understand, what do we tell our students and our family members as we try to help them as well?
Well, some of my strategies, I have a number of them. This morning I practiced yoga. And, you know, who knew that in January 1st through January 30th, when I did my yoga challenge, that this would be something that I would come back to in March as a source of just self-care. Because while I am working from home, which many of us are doing, and unfortunately there are those of us who are not working from home and they don't have that privilege, and I recognize that. But while I'm working from home, it feels quite busy. It feels just as busy, but without some of those natural breaks and transitions that we kind of get and take for granted. And so, and because, you know, focused, I could sit here and I can work for 8 hours, but that's not good for me. And so being able to recognize that things like taking lunch or having a meal and stepping away from the desk, that is also the dining room table, but stepping away from my office and going to another part of my home, practicing yoga in my newly appointed yoga studio, which is also my living room. And so, like, you know, I do use humor. Yoga is one thing that I do. Every day I must laugh. That's something that I've always maintained as just like my personality, but even more importantly now, especially when things are challenging, things are uncertain, I can't let go of the things that are a part of what makes me my best. So I have to I laugh every day. So Trevor Noah, different YouTube clips, connecting with my family, my friends, hugely important. Also away from family at this time. A lot of my whole family's in the Bahamas, more primarily, and would be unable to get to them either. So these connections are important. Any strategies that you have in your life before COVID-19, we want to continue to do them because those are the things that we can't control. Even going outdoors, and if you can't go to the gym, then there's so many conditioning workouts on your phone that you can just go out in the yard or out on the sidewalk or wherever and do some burpees, do some jumping jacks, take a walk, go for a run. There are things in our life that are out of control right now. That's a fact. But there are many things that are within our control. And so as Dr. Ottley and Dr. Akua said, if making a routine is the only thing that we can control, or getting up in the morning and saying a prayer and making our bed, then let's go for it, because that's gonna help us as we move through this time. It's gonna help us cope as we move through this time. Now, there was a second part to your question, Dr. Robinson. What was that?
The idea of how do we help our students? There are coaches that are in the chat. There are, parents even who want to know what do they tell their children and help them cope with this situation?
I think one of the things that's important to tell our children is the truth. And so it's important to focus on facts, where we can give our children facts within developmental appropriateness. That's the most important thing. And there's a lot of things that we don't know, and that is the truth. So it's okay. Just like it's okay to not be okay, it's okay to say, I don't know. But what I do know is, and then you can tell your student athletes are that, you're still taking classes right now and you're doing pretty well. So why not focus and direct your attention towards that, because you still have that. While there are some things that you don't have and that have shifted and changed, you are still progressing towards your degree. And that is amazing. For some of our student athletes, just, one of my co-panelists said, if taking it one day at a time, because that's kind of one of my life hacks right now, one day at a time. Please don't think about the summer. Please don't think about May, and please don't think about Easter. One day at a time. If that's too large a gap or a time frame, then let's bring it into half a day. If that's too big, narrow the gap until it feels comfortable for you. So these are some of the strategies I'm helping my student athletes with. Find things to do that you would not have otherwise been doing, because you would have been doing like 20 hours a week of participation. Play the guitar, start playing the guitar, piano, voice lessons. Like, what are the things that you haven't been able to fully commit to because you've had other commitments and obligations, but now you have that opportunity. And those are things that they're also things that bring you joy. Because a lot of the things that we pick up, our hobbies, we enjoy them. So these are some of the strategies that I talk to my student athletes with. And talk to your family, talk to your friends. They definitely feel as though, at least at the beginning of this, when we stepped out of classes 3 weeks ago, there were so many of my student athletes who felt like, oh, other people, they didn't realize that everybody else was going through this at the same time. And that was kind of interesting for me to hear them say at the end of a session that the thing that's resonating with them the most is that they're not alone. And that was interesting to me. But now that some of them, you know, we talk about solidarity and, you know, we're in this collective space of uncertainty, that is comforting.
Thank you. Dr. V, I want to ask you the same question about your personal strategies, but there was a question in the chat that I think will tie in nicely. And this is a question about dealing with family that are away and that feeling of isolation. And I know you have family that are away as well. And what are your strategies for handling that?
I think, oh, that's a loaded question again. Geez, all the great questions. Personally, for me, the strategy that I try to use is creativity. So yes, there's a ton of things that we want to do that we are somehow not able to. So whether it's working out, so you can't actually get to the gym. So how do you do your workouts? You can't go out and do a lot of the social things that you would usually do. So how do you get creative with filling those voids that you might have created or seen emerge from your day-to-day? So for me, I've tried to be as creative as possible to tap into that side of me that I would not have usually had the time to do. So like I repainted my office last week. You know, something simple as that. A lot of my friends, we have Zoom parties. So, you know, one friend puts on the music and everybody else chats, and then we have these silly polls that come up, and we have our lines, as we call it in Trinidad, on the computer. So it's about getting creative with what it is you don't usually have to do, having the MacGyver complex, so I like to call it. So this is what we have, and what can we do with it? So I try to play with that a little bit. One of the questions, before I answer your second question, one of the questions in the chat pod from Olivia was about your pressure on becoming the better version of yourself in this time. And I think we're all faced with that. We see it, we're inundated with messages on Instagram, like, you know, I'm going to lose this weight. I'm going to create this whole thing. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Creating these lengthy to-do lists. And we find half of us are just like, really? So the unfortunate thing is that social media is connecting us, but it's also forcing us to compare ourselves with each other. And that's creating almost like a side effect of this connectivity that's just going awry just a little bit. So the message I wanted to tell Olivia is that you don't have to change the world in this time. You don't have to, when the quarantines are lifted or the stay-at-home orders are lifted, the expectation isn't that you walk out of your house and you're just this brand new version of yourself, but it is the version of yourself that you want it to be. So it does not have to match up with what everybody else is doing. It's just what you feel comfortable in, where you want to grow in this time. So it doesn't have to be a big thing. It just has to be something that you feel comfortable with. Because resilience for you is different to resilience for me. So for me, I want to paint things. I'm surrounded by color all the time, that kind of thing. But for you, it could be, you know, vegging on Netflix for like 2 days. And that is fine, as long as you assess your day at the end and is this what I want from this time? And if you feel great at the end of those 2 days, then okay. But then if you don't, you make an adjustment and you make those little changes every day as you go through this process. And that's going to help you create that version of yourself when this is over. Because you really don't want to look back and be like full of regret, but you want to be able to look back and say, okay, I did me, and be okay with what you did in the time. So that's a question that you have to ask yourself as you go through the process. And remind me what the last question was again, Robinson.
The question is about family who are away, and how do we still connect with them or find ways to do that? Okay,
so I'm a global citizen, as what you would call it. So my home is almost everywhere. I made the choice. I'm in Trinidad right now, so I made the choice to stay on island during this time because I have my parents that are older, and I wanted to make sure that the shift in mentality, which is the shift in mentality for them. I mean, I'm going to the store with my mother, don't touch your face. Don't adjust your glasses. Don't touch that. Step back a little bit. So it's a learning curve for them as well, as to, what it is you can do when you are outside, and how do you protect yourself in this process. So being away from people is difficult, but it is also an opportunity for you to, they say you don't miss the water till the well runs dry. So if I found, for me, I've been reaching out to people that I have not spoken to or seen or heard of for years. And people are messaging me from all over the globe that I visited for a week or 2 weeks, like, hey, how are you doing? What's going on there? What's your count? What is the policies in place there? How are you guys managing? So I think even though we focus on being apart, it's amazing at how connected we really all are in this process. Like Dr. Coakley said before, we're all in this together, even though we might not be able to see each other physically, but we can see each other just like how we are here. Like, I'm connected to each of the 68 people in this chat that I probably would have never reached or seen or spoken to. So it's focusing on those things. I think it's very helpful when it is you're away from family. I've spoken to my brother that lives in New York more in the last week than I have in the last 6 months. So, it's amazing how that works. But it is normal to feel a little bit separate, but recognizing on the different creative ways that you can build those connectivities. There's so many apps on that you can play Pictionary, and you can do all of these different things, and you can still connect with people on levels that you probably would not have been able to. Because imagine, we've been spending years with our friends at dinner like this, right? And we're obviously, pay attention to the person in front of you. You're disrespecting them. And we've been here, texting somebody else for, years. And now this is how we stay connected to them. So learning the lessons that we learn now, how important it is to actually be here, I'm hoping it's something that translates to after this, that we can still be there with each other.
Awesome, thank you. Believe it or not, we are at the almost 10-minute mark for tonight's conversation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to turn the mic over to each and every one of you and allow you the opportunity to either answer a question you saw in the chat or perhaps one we spoke about the other day. But really, this is just your time, and then we'll finish up after that. Dr. Coakley, will you start us off?
Sure, it's my pleasure. This morning I saw Kevin Love on television, and he made a statement that he said very eloquently, very succinctly, but I've been saying this, for the better part of 3 or 4 weeks now. And what he said was, the worst thing that could happen is that we come out of this unchanged. And that was kind of like what Vernice just spoke about. We don't have to be our best versions of ourselves, and we don't have to get to that point, because then what would the rest of our life be about? So, but being able to take advantage of this moment, seeing it as an opportunity to do something differently, but something differently that our future self, whenever we get out of this, because we will, that our future self will really appreciate us for taking the time to do. So whether that is learning a language, learning how to play an instrument, or going back to the instrument, learning to sew, connecting with people who you've just really not been a really great connector with, or being a better spouse, parent, being a better teacher to your children. These are all things that we have the opportunity to do right now. And guess what? Nothing else is competing with our time to do it. So we don't have our usual excuses that limit us and our barriers to our growth. So I really want to encourage people, it's hard. It's scary. Our tendency is to want to be anxious and panic, and that's okay. But I really want to encourage you to focus on facts, replace the fear with facts, and just take one day at a time And in that, taking one day at a time, figure out what your purpose is for today. Like, what's my purpose today? Figure that out. Today, my purpose was to practice a really solid yoga session. And my mantra was, I am strong, I am resilient, we will get through this. And so that's today. And certainly to be a part of this wonderful gathering. Every time I do these things, I have trepidation before, and then I'm always so grateful afterwards that I said yes, and yes is my tendency because I want to help. And so let's try to figure out how we're going to come out of this in a way that's going to enrich not just us and not just our families, but the same way COVID is taking over the globe, maybe have that kind of outreach, a global outreach in terms of what we get and what we give after this is over.
Dr. Boateng, do you have a question you'd like to answer, or just some words?
I saw a couple things pop up about grief, and then also being able to talk to family members. Maybe I'll address that in mine. I've been, again, talking to a lot of people about staying open. Listen, open up yourself in this time. We are one of the most resilient creatures that you will ever find. And we do not realize that until we descend into adversity. Resilience is adversity with positive adaptation, the ability to adapt to your environment when the heat goes up, when situations do not seem as they should be, when I'm not exactly sure how to move forward. It's in these moments that we find the best of ourselves. We also find that there are some places within ourselves that we need to clean up. There might be places within yourself, that grief, right? Some of the sadness that you might feel. It's okay to grieve all of the things that have happened to you, that have happened to your family because of this pandemic. It's okay to give yourself time to do that. It's okay to name that emotion, express that emotion, not to feel like we have to be in this space of a super women, right? That we have to take care of everyone and operate in a way that is not unique to our humanity, but to really begin to listen to what's within you about what you should do next. Oftentimes, these moments of adversity really give us the opportunity to see what we're made of. We might come out of this space with something that we never realized that we needed. It could be that your business, I think somebody asked about your finances changing and your business maybe going down. Okay, what do? We grieve that. We feel the emotion. We are sad about that. We feel that that's exactly how I thought my life was going to go, and it just changed up. And so how do I get quiet and clear about what needs to happen next? And you find within yourself in this time of adversity, things that you never knew were there. And so if I would admonish anyone to do, or everyone to do, one thing tonight or tomorrow, is to just begin to clear the space out internally, to hear what it is that you need to do next. And I am really confident, as I talk to many people, when they do that, they are able to find out what that next step is, whether it is, again, for them to draft a new business. Maybe there's a new business in you. Maybe there's a new strategy in you. Maybe there's something that you need to do at home that's going to, you'll be able to monetize it. Maybe it is, I really needed to connect with my family because we've been estranged for so long. Or I move so much, I need to be quiet. I need to be still. The universe has given me a moment to literally do the thing that I always talked about doing. What will I do? How will I respond? That's really what we have in our ability and our control.
That's very powerful. Very. Dr. Ottley, your words? Wait, Dr. Ottley, you're on mute. We didn't hear you.
That took about a few seconds, but I'm trying to be quick. So I just wanted to do a quick shout out to some of the Black Women in Sport Foundation, because these are the women who have made this happen, like Lucille Hester and Ernestine Adams, and Leno Thames. So I would like to also talk a little bit about grief, because, and it's from what, and give my condolences for those who already have lost. And, you know, because this is what we do. This is our responsibility to each other. And to acknowledge, you know, the pain that comes with it, and to my like young athletes and you know, senior athletes as well, who have lost in a different way, but you know, has also significance. So just specifically for the those with the physical loss that we are hearing so much about, it's you know, grief in itself is just making sure that no one, you know, tell you how long it takes to grieve. You know, a lot of people can't go and be out and have, you know, and celebrate the homegoing of their loved ones at this time. So it's there's little things that I tell some of my athletes who have had loss, physical loss, that they can do, you know, to celebrate their loved ones. Like light a candle, you know. One athlete said that she you know, she wears her brother's shirt, you know. It's just but acknowledge it and just allow it to, you know, allow yourself to see the significance of it. Once you're here and still going, they live within you. So take comfort inside of your loss, and know that you are not alone. We all have gone through this from time to time. So take your time, take it day by day, and focus on the beauty and the strength that's within you. I always like to talk about, you know, that value, you know, valuing yourself. And I say a lot, you know, strengthen your strengths. A lot of people talk about your weaknesses. And I say, look, listen, one thing you show off are your strengths. So just strengthen your strengths. The weakness is going to follow if it has a strong lead. And also be very vigilant, right? You always have to be watchful. You always have to be aware of what's going on right now. Our immune system, this is a time that we focus on our immunity, and we strengthen that, and we eat in a certain kind of way, because we have a personal responsibility to self and to others. So that's one of my recommendations, and also live life with a mission. Yeah. We are deliberate out here, especially, let me talk, since I'm on the board of the Black Women in Sport Foundation. So I would talk straight to the Black women out there. Hey, listen, we are powerful beyond measure. Yeah. And whatever your, you know, you are doing out there, you know, do it big and large. You know, shrinking has no place in our mission, and live life with a purpose. Whatever you're doing every day, even though you're not going out there and doing it, you know, dream about it right now. Yeah, because we are going to survive. It's not, you know, life is going to give us what we want, and but we have to be powerful, and we have to put meaning to what our desires are. Have courage and be bold and brave. You're not alone.
Thank you. Dr. Richards?
So the last words. Just something really quickly on grief. So we know that there are different stages of grief, right? So, and I think when Dr. Ottley mentioned, you know, being angry, and we know that that's one of the middle stages of grief. And I would say quite a few of us are right smack dab in the middle of that. going past the shock and denial, the pain and the guilt as why not me or why them, and then anger, and then going into like the loneliness, depression, and then finally acceptance. So what I think a lot of people we want to try to understand is that grief is not an isolated event. It's not only the loss of the job or the loss of the loved one, but it's also something that's consistent. So it's a consistent emotional feeling or an attachment to something that is broken at that time. And right now we might be feeling senses of grief on many different levels. For some of us, we have our own self-identity of like sort of who we are. Like you identify yourself as an athlete, or you identify yourself as an employee, or you identify yourself as something. And right now, those self-identities are being challenged. And so many of us are grieving that, right? As in like, who am I now? What does this look like for me post now? And we have to remember too that we're all in grieving those elements of ourselves that we may not have had to interact with, or we probably weren't even consciously aware of at that time. So recognizing that you could be grieving a ton of different things. It's not only the people who have lost a loved one or an actual tangible thing that are grieving. We're all going through it as well. So knowing that your self-identity is being challenged and redefined in this time, it sort of ties back into a lot of the other things that we've talked about today about being positive, being optimistic, setting goals for yourself, being creative, like I said before, or finding things within your daily routine that sort of incites your passions. So recognizing that it sort of connects to each thing that we might be dealing with and working with the people around us that are also dealing with those things as well. Another thing to note is we have a lot of people saying, okay, the pressures of being perfect at the end of this or better. And we want to recognize a little bit of a shift between the difference of being positive and being optimistic. So the difference between those two is time, right? Being positive is what's good in my life right now, gratitude, okay? Being optimistic is believing in that good things will happen in the future, looking forward to that. And so optimism, you usually think of it as this airy, flary, fluffy thing, right? It's like, oh, great. But it's not only that, it's a scientific thing that actually changes the way your brain works. So that way you're able to go out and do those things. You're able to go out and be those things that you sort of set those goals for. So it's not only about being positive in that moment, but also being optimistic and being able to look forward to what's next.
Thank you. Thank you all. I know it's time for us to turn it back over to Nina to close us out, but I just wanted to take one final moment to really express that gratitude. We've talked a lot tonight about anxiety with the changing times. We've talked about resilience. We've talked about optimism, and we've talked about really listening to what you're going through and giving yourself permission to feel those feelings and to really take the time to either use this time to do something you've never done before, or just to take this time to heal. And we just want you to know that we're all in this together. So with that, Nina, please take us home.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Dr. Robinson, and to all of you incredible women who have served as panelists for us. This dialogue is so important, and I just feel grateful that you all agreed to participate. I also want to thank all of you who registered to participate and are on via Zoom and on via Facebook and are watching the live stream. This is not the end of this dialogue. It is only the beginning. On your screen, you will see contact information for our practitioners and some resources, ways to follow along with the Black Women in Sport Foundation, some self-care resources compiled by our practitioners, and their contact information. We will share this information on Facebook and on our website in the next day or so. So feel free to reach out and connect. Again, we will continue this conversation and answer the questions that weren't answered in the chat. The Black Women in Sport Foundation will also be hosting another forum on April 15th. In that forum, we will discuss careers in athletics, sports, and entertainment with a dynamic panel of coaches and journalists and athletic administrators. I know there were some questions in the chat about that. So stay tuned for more information about that. I hope you can enjoy it, join us and follow along on social media for updates. We are at our time. We're a little over time, but we are very grateful. We encourage everyone to stay safe, to stay healthy as best they can, to stay home. Please check on each other and take some time for yourself. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Until next time, thank you very much.